Hey, this is Sanyam Bhutani, and you're listening to Chai Time Data Science, a podcast for data science enthusiasts where I interview practitioners, researchers, and Kagglers about their journey, experience, and talk all things about data science. Hello and welcome to another episode in the Chai Time Data Science Show. In this episode, I interview Chip Huyen. Chip is a senior deep learning engineer at NVIDIA with a background in computer science from Stanford. In this interview, we talk all about her journey into the field of machine learning and her current work at NVIDIA. We also discuss machine learning interviews and the book that Chip is currently working on, which is all about machine learning interviews. Also, her experience interviewing candidates and MOOCs or open online courses, including the amazing TensorFlow one that Chip had taught at Stanford. Here's my interview with Chip Huyen all about machine learning interviews and online courses. Please enjoy the show. Hello, Chip. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to have you on the show and be talking to you.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. You're currently working as a senior deep learning engineer at NVIDIA, and you have been
That's
working as a researcher in the deep learning domain for the past few years.
Well,
Uh,
research was so I did research in college, and I work as a research assistant. So right now I'm also doing applied research.
Okay. Could you tell us how did you get started with deep learning and what made you pick this as a career path for yourself?
So it's very funny because my background is in writing. So I
Okay.
went to college thinking I could do something like creative writing or journalism, and and then I took a CS course, my computer science course, because at Stanford, like 90% of students take one CS course at one point or another. So it was like, when I first got in, my friends were like, it's not a matter of whether you're going to take a course or not. It's a matter of when you're going to take a CS course.
Okay.
So I thought, okay, I might go take it in my freshman year, my first quarter. So I took with friends, and I really liked it. And I became like a sort of a teaching assistant for a CS course.
But your bachelor's was in computers, right? So when you signed up for Stanford?
No, Stanford is so it's liberal art. So you don't have to decide the major when you got
Oh,
to
okay.
college. So you have 2 years to declare the major.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, that is great. That is amazing. So I took some CS courses and I liked it. I liked them, and then kept taking more courses. And before I knew it, I was a CS major.
Okay. And how did deep learning come into the picture while you were experimenting with CS or somewhere along the line?
I would say it's like AI was an easier track for CS. Like, I was not good with system. I was off on system. Theory is exciting, but I feel like AI has so many cool applications. So I think it's like AI.
Got
And
it.
it was like really easy. It's like AI was I think it was one of the main tracks for CS, and a lot of people were taking it, and the courses were super exciting.
Right. Okay. So in my college as well, in my experience, AI has been comparatively easier versus the advanced algorithmic courses. So that's one of the reasons I did opt for this.
Yeah, I think so. In high school, I actually did math. So I think it really helped with doing AI as well.
Mhm.
So it was not like I didn't feel like I was struggling too much.
Okay. And I think you started research right after graduation. So working in applied research. What made you pick research over the industry?
I'm in industry right now. I'm working for NVIDIA.
But it's applied research, right? So just working on some product versus research.
No, our team is very production oriented.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So we build. So actually we help. So we build toolkits to help companies bring research into production.
Got it.
Yeah.
Could you tell us more about what projects you're currently working on, and how does the life of a researcher, applied researcher at NVIDIA look like?
Um. So our teams, we have a lot of frameworks. Our team is very new. It's like under 1 year.
Mhm.
So we have OpenSeq2Seq, which is a framework to help people do like sequences one model. So it's based on TensorFlow. And the main feature is that it supports mixed precision training and have a very easy way to do distributed training. So we also have a speech recognition system like Jasper,
Mhm.
which so it's built. So it consists of like very simple component, and it has really good performance. So it should make a good baseline model for people to compare against. So
Okay.
so you probably get so we care a lot about production, which means we want to build models that are easy to deploy. So when we do research, we will care more benchmarking. So they build model like no matter how complex, as long as it beats like SOTA state of the art results. So we
Mhm.
care more on like so a lot of those state of the art models are hard to deploy because they might be like extremely uh, big or extremely
Especially the
complex.
recent ones.
Yeah. So we focus more on models. So we trying to build models that are easy to deploy.
Mhm.
So
Uh,
build toolkit to make it easy for companies to fine tune their data set.
okay. Uh, NVIDIA already has, I think, Apex, which is a mixed precision training library. So, how is OpenSeq2Seq different? Because Apex does make it somewhat easy to use.
It works on PyTorch.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So we also have an upcoming framework that is in beta testing right now. That is like high level machine learning framework that
got it.
supports Apex. Yeah.
So, talking about your previous, I think these were internships at University of Edinburgh and Netflix. Could you
Yeah.
talk a bit about the projects, and also did you get Netflix free for life when you interned there?
Oh my god, I cannot believe how many times my friend made a joke on Netflix and chill. Don't shit on Netflix. No, Netflix did not give a free account for life.
Okay.
Uh, Sad. Now I have to use my friend's account for life.
Okay.
Um,
I was going to bother
uh,
you in case you said yes.
hmm?
I was going to
It's okay.
bother you for your account.
I don't have one. I'm using my friend's account right now.
Okay.
Um, so my work at University of Edinburgh was I was working on like ASR, like abstract AMR, sorry, abstract meaning representation. Do you know it keeps confused with AMR, ASR, like the automatic speech recognition.
Mhm.
And we got ASR, I just keep confused. So like abstract meaning representations, trying to find the canonical representation of languages. So like in graph, like. So it was a very short period. It was interesting. So it was one of those more old school
Mhm.
linguistics, old
Okay.
school NLP. It's when it's still trying to find universal representation for language, like like global universal grammar for
Mhm.
language.
Okay.
It was very interesting. Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think some people they still work on it, but AMR is a pretty niche.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's cool though. So I feel like a lot of time we're just focusing on the news of flashy things like deep learning. Um, so being able to spend some time on something less flashy, a little
Mhm.
bit old school. is pretty nice. I learned a lot through the process. So I think my contribution was mostly finding a way to represent to encode graph. So when
Okay.
you represent text using graphs, and how do you input the graph into the system?
Mhm.
So yeah, so it was like doing a graph embedding.
Okay. I'm sorry. Just wanted to be sure. So embedding graphs, you referring to the data structure, right?
Yeah, so like when you convert, you have a sentence, you convert it into a graph. For example, like I go to school,
Mhm.
then go, it may be like the main node, and then like read it to I, read it to like to objective like to school, things like that.
Okay. Okay. And what about the project at Netflix? What did you work on at
Yeah.
Netflix?
Netflix, it works on a machine translation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Do they use this in production? Because maybe in the subtitle engine, I'm not sure.
Wow, I don't think I can talk much about that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
but
it.
I think you can yes about machine translation at Netflix. I mean, yeah.
All right. And talking about NVIDIA has been doing a lot of exciting open source projects as well. So could you maybe mention a few outside of your team that you're really excited about, maybe the current developments?
Oh, hmm. Let's see. I think like a lot of exciting projects going with GAN modeling,
Mhm.
like GAN. So NVIDIA has been making really good progress with that. We also work with a lot with large scale training. So like our like Brian Canazaro teams has been releasing this recent huge language model with 8 billion
Yeah.
parameters. Yeah. So
Uh,
we doing a lot with self-driving cars.
mhm. Yes. I think the language model is called Megatron, right?
Yes, I think that might be it. Yeah, Megatron. Um,
Yeah.
wow, that model was super hard to train because I know the team working on it, and because it's really tricky to be able to train using such large amount of GPUs.
I also think like outside of maybe Nvidia or maybe Google for that matter, it's not literally possible to even give that idea a shot.
I think a lot of companies can be able to afford it.
Mhm.
People are putting a lot of money into AI,
Right.
but the
Um,
question is, should they?
yeah. So that brings me to another question is so deep learning research usually involves a lot of compute power, and which can be a barrier for like maybe students or small scale companies. So do you think someone who has access to a limited number of compute, maybe single GPU machines, can also produce great results?
Yeah, why not? So I think it's a debate about whether having too much resources might be a bad thing for doing research.
Um, Not really. It's also about. So I'm always curious because I just have a single GPU with me, and
Mhm.
how good can I get with just using a single machine?
So I think there have been a lot of great work achieved by using just like very few GPUs. So I think there's an ongoing debate. So especially with the trend of like models getting bigger and bigger, using more data, more computing resources, people have been wondering like, so like as a researcher, do I have to join a big company to take advantage of all the resources?
Mhm.
So I think actually I had a very so I was I posted on Twitter, and it was turned out to be a very active discussion,
Mhm.
and people. So I think some people has this view as so like having too much resources can make you lazy, can stifle
Yeah.
creativity. So maybe we'll just like just throw it at it and see something good out of it. And a lot of progresses in research are made to make it train more efficiently using less data, using less compute. So like
Mhm.
drop out or batch norm, a lot of those concepts to help you train
Yeah.
more efficiently. Um, or also like even with recent like bird is huge, and just today they have this model of this new bird.
Yeah.
was just like 66 million parameters. So I think it's a both direction. You can either go bigger, like just like maybe go bigger, or you can also develop new techniques that doesn't require massive data or
Mhm.
compute. Which coming from me, like as somebody going for NVIDIA, it might sound like preaching. But yeah, I think I have seen like really impressive work done by with very resources. Do you know the team like Hugging Face
Yep.
or Explosion and Spacey, Rasa, like they own a very small team with
Mhm.
very little power, and they are doing incredible work. That being said, I'm not saying that people like building bigger models are not doing good work. I think they're also doing incredible work. I'm
Quick
not saying
plug.
just like, yeah.
We'll also have an interview with the CTO of Hugging Face in the podcast series. So for the listeners, do check it out in case you're interested.
Is that Thomas or who's that? Who's the CDO?
Uh, Julian
Julian.
Chapman.
Oh, that's so exciting. Oh, I think Hugging Face is so great. I'm such a big fan.
For sure. I'm
You should
not
interview.
even sure how do they pull off just shipping these things so fast, because the recent OpenAI GPT-2 release, they just shipped it in, I think, 2-3 days.
Ah, yeah, I'm a big fan.
So another thing that personally I think is possible is people with lesser resources can sometimes come up with pretty interesting or innovative ideas. For example, Jason Antich, the creator of Deoldify,
Hmm.
so he created this colorization technique on a single 1080 Ti, which is like a consumer GPU, which earlier people would imagine would require a complete studio of people literally working on having videos colored.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of cool project you can do with single GPU.
Um, I'd also like to talk about online learning. So you taught an amazing course on TensorFlow while you were at Stanford. Um,
So that's
now,
awesome.
I did enroll for it, but then I was also sidetracked into FastA, so I unfortunately didn't get to completing it. But talking talking more about the course, so you were, I think, a full-time student at Stanford in the time at the
It
time.
was, yes.
And which in itself is a huge commitment. So why was it important for you to also contribute to the course and create all the material?
I think it was important for me because I wanted a course on TensorFlow. So I really wanted to learn TensorFlow. As a beginning, I didn't know much about TensorFlow. So I
Mhm.
used it during my internship and my saw like in my second year, and thought that TensorFlow is pretty cool. I wish I knew how to use it better. And I went back to school and I talked to some professors like, can you guys take your course in TensorFlow? And we're like, oh, we're too busy. We can't teach one. Like, if you want a course, you should teach it. I said, can I? And they were like, yeah, you should propose. So I made a proposal
Mm.
and they accepted, and I taught the course. So for me, it was, yeah, it was just some things I thought could be useful for myself.
Mm. For
Yeah.
context, there weren't a lot of courses around TensorFlow back in the day. I think not even the nano degrees from university.
Yeah, I think it might have been the first course on TensorFlow
Okay.
ish, maybe. Don't quote me on that.
For a little section, I'll also like to talk about machine learning jobs. So I know you've been
Mhm.
working on an amazing book. You had tweeted about it, and I
Thanks,
got really
everyone.
excited.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Uh,
working on a book on machine learning interviews.
we'll talk all about it, but thanks to efforts from people like you, we have this huge pool of online courses now, of which are great quality, like courses from Stanford, MIT, all of the top institutes. And do you think someone who's just online educated in machine learning, can they build equally interesting projects at someone who is enrolled in Stanford, for example?
Oh my God, I can tell you that like some of the best machine learning people I know, not all, but like a lot of people, amazing people I know, they are self-taught.
Okay. Any favorite projects that you'd like to mention coming from self-taught people?
Hmm. MuseNet from Christine Payne.
For
She
sure.
was a musician. Yeah, and then she's like OpenAI. I think as a scholar. and her project was MuseNet, which is super cool. Alex Radford OpenAI was like self-taught. I think Luke Matt from Google Brain. So the Alex Radford who does own a GPT too. Luke Matt also did a lot of work with GAN, like DC GAN. He was also self-taught. So there are so many incredible people in machine learning as who are self-taught. It's self-taught, but like yes, I feel like education, college might give you the fundamentals, but to be good, you have to actively learn by yourself. So it's I was talking to like people at Stanford about the curriculum because I do want to teach a course there, and I realized that universities, especially research universities, a lot more focus on theories. So if you go to college or universities, it might be good at theory, but to become really good practitioner, you might have to learn by yourself anyway.
I definitely agree on that. So I've also completed my computer science degree just fresh out of college. And honestly, I feel I'm not a good programmer, which is the usual conception that anyone who's done a CS degree should be a good programmer.
Depends. Some schools are really good at teaching software engineering. So I noticed my friends who learned software engineering in school. So first of all, I had my CS degree in computer science, right? So the idea of computer science is really sounds a lot about theory. And they never taught us like how to use Git or like how to like good Pythonic way of doing something. You're just supposed to figure out how to do it by yourself. So they teach you theory, algorithms, big O, but no. But I realized that I was a pretty bad engineer. I just relied on what I learned in school. And so see other Stanford students code and I was like, oh my god, this is awful. And then I saw some of my friends who went to some random school in Germany or like Russia and they like beautiful code. And like, wow, that is really amazing.
Do you think someone who's self-taught, can you envision them working on your team, and how do they build a profile or good profile for the hiring people?
Yeah, certainly. Like I already said, I think I made a list of like some people that I know who are self-taught and join big company like Google, OpenAI, Facebook ish. And at NVIDIA, I think we recently hired an intern who is a freshman. So he just finished his first year, and I think he learned a lot of machine learning in school. I think we were impressed by his resume portfolio project he did as a high school student just in his free time.
In high school. Okay.
Yeah, and also like I feel like for people who are self-taught, if you care deeply about the field and you are able to show to recruiters that you do cool stuff, like whether it's publishing paper or publishing open source project or contributing to open source project. I think I remember it was like I saw somebody made a pull request to an open source project, and I read it and was like, oh my god, this person is like really good because he was so thoughtful with his comment and on his decision and why he chose to do it. So it's like, oh, this person might be a really good person to work with because he clearly have a strong engineering skill and he doesn't mind explaining what he's doing. I'm not sure when you work on project and like some people who are really great engineers, but they don't explain themselves. It's like I have no idea how to do that. So I was so impressed and I actually like recommended him to like few companies that I know were hiring people like him. So I think it's totally doable if you're self-taught. And of course there are a lot of biases in hiring. So a lot of people, I think it's more prominent for entry level role, like recent college graduate. So companies rely on a lot of campus recruiting. So they go to campus and try to hire students as a campus. Like some company, like more than half of their hires are from a campus recruiting. And what that means is that they go to a few popular engineering schools to like career, but it's more affection for them. Or like they get from referrals. So Like if a friend from MIT goes to Google, there's a friend will refer other people from MIT. So I think like for junior roles,
Mhm.
it's hard so companies usually it's hard for companies to evaluate the candidates well with just interviews because that candidate probably hasn't have a lot of work done before.
Yeah.
So they might rely on a weak signals like what school you go to,
Mhm.
or so it provides some sort of like sanity check for the company. So it might be harder for people who don't go to fancy name school,
But again,
or
it
I
could
don't
be
know prefer
substituted
research.
with a good
Hmm?
open source profile, maybe, or just specifically for machine learning with maybe a good Kaggle profile. Those could act good substitutes for a good uh,
Substitute,
college.
uh, not substitute. What you want to have as many signals
Hmm.
as possible, like to signal to employers, recruiters that you're gonna make a good hire. Yeah, but it's definitely not a substitution.
Yeah. Um, let's say for a situation, I'm a self-taught ML engineer who's applying for an entry level job. What sort of signals would you be looking for when looking at maybe a resume or a profile?
Yeah, resume is good. So I would definitely look at our GitHub
Mhm.
if you have one. See like look at have you done like Kaggle computations? If you build models before, if it's an open source project. I would definitely look into if you have blog, then I would really like to see some in-depth technical post, which shows that you're not only like so you have to understand things well to be able to explain things.
Right.
Um, yeah. So basically, like what my manager told me, my manager was very kind to like teach me how to like look screen resumes. So my manager really cares a lot about just going above and beyond. I use a
Mhm.
kind of person who's like actively trying to do more than what you are told. Like for if you're a student, are you just gonna do the homework and
Yeah.
nothing else? If it's a little good resume, even if that person goes to a really good school, but like they have nothing else to show outside coursework, I would be
Mhm.
like, yeah, I don't know.
So, coming back to the book to talk more about the book, you have shared an introductory chapter as well. We'll have that linked in the description. But could you maybe
Mm.
share where did the inspiration for even starting to work on the book came for?
So I have so many friends applying for job in machine learning. So I was like a teaching assistant for like 8 quarters, and then I
Wow.
taught across. I had like a lot of students and so many friends applying for a job. And whenever they apply, I try to help them as much as possible. So she like helping them was like preparing resume or like preparing for interviews or like even negotiating.
Mhm.
Great news today! Like two of my friends have been helping with interviews. Told me that they get the offers, and the offers are like way better than they expected, and I'm like super happy.
Mhm.
Um,
That's awesome.
yeah, so I've been like helping my friends or students and like to prepare for a long time, and I realize it's like they're not really a good resource for
Mhm.
machine learning interviews. For traditional software engineering interviews, they have books like Cracking the Coding Interview,
For sure.
which is a really good book. I read the book and I'm super impressed. So even though I disagree with some of the format of questions, it's mostly like my problem with those questions are um, they're very self-contained questions.
Mm.
It means that when you solve them, there's no room for like to
Follow up.
show how to show
Mm.
how good you are. And but I think like the book laid out a great foundations for learning skills. I don't see anything like that for machine learning interview.
That's very true.
Yes, and I realized that over time I have like as I talked to helping my friends prep, I just said the same thing over and over again. And so when I talk to hiring managers, then so like we discuss the same problems. So I
Mhm.
thought maybe just put everything together in a book. So yeah, so I think it's a book for I wrote it with candidates in mind.
Mhm.
Um, but I still like in the process I've talked to a lot of hiring managers and they're also interested into understanding the process more. So machine learning in the industry is very new. And
Right.
a lot of companies are still trying to figure out what's the best way to access candidates for machine learning roles. So it's gonna be it's a feedback loop, because I expect that some people, when they read this book, like some interviewers and read the book, they might change the style of interviewing, and might make the interview process better. Um, yeah, that's what I hope.
For both sides of the table, so for the hiring people and people applying as well, right?
Yeah, but mostly it's for candidates.
That's really awesome. I'm really excited, and we hope to
Me
see
too.
the book come out pretty soon. So you've also put a blog post, a recent blog post where you analyze 16,000. Actually, the exact figure is 15,897 Glassdoor reviews to understand the tech hiring culture.
Yeah.
Was this part of working on the book? And do you think there are any parallels or disconnects when compared with machine learning hiring interviews?
Um. So I think. So yes, it was part of the in like research for the book, because I really want to understand the technical hiring pipeline. But the reason is that machine learning interviews, basically they spend it's like it's evolved out of the traditional technical hiring
Mhm.
process. So it's considered as a fundamental. Also, there are not enough reviews on machine learning interviews to do a separate research on it.
Okay.
So I think what is useful is where the companies get candidates, because it's also very similar for traditional software engineering role and for machine learning role. So like whether it's come from campus recruiting or from referrals or from recruiter reaching out,
Mhm.
and also understand like the interview experience, follows whether candidates like has a good interview experience or bad interview experience, and how much it correlates to how much time the company spent on training interviewers. So actually, different companies spend different amount of time training interviewers, how to conduct proper interview.
Okay. Um, I'm also like when I was researching for my AI residency application, so I interviewed for the Google AI residency. Unfortunately, I didn't get in, but I think there aren't any even resources around. Sorry.
I said I didn't get in either.
That's very relieving. Um, so there aren't any proper analysis of how do these look like. So I'd really love to for other people as well analyze these better, just software roles as well, or maybe AI roles if we can gather the data, because even Glassdoor does show these open analysis, but there's no much depth to it.
Yeah, it's really I don't know like what other public resource we can find though, because our
Mhm.
analysis is only as good as our as the data we can get our hands on.
For sure. And I think another problem there would be with Glassdoor, especially like when I got rejected, I didn't even go to the website to even leave a feedback because I was so disappointed. So all of these biases do creep in there as well.
Yeah, so I think so of course there are a lot of biases in Glassdoor interview, and I think I put it in the post as well.
Yeah.
So of course like there are very few, there's a very small percentage of people actually leaving feedback anything online. And it's a check is like a very certain personality to leave feedback online. And another thing is that like people who leave feedback online are usually driven by either really good or really bad experience.
Right.
And most people they are more prone to put reviews for the companies that they accept they got an offer. So for
Mhm.
companies they don't offer. So like all of that, there are like a lot of biases like that, which make the numbers are not as reliable as I hoped. But the value here is that like if all the reviews have the same biases, then it still might be useful to compare across companies.
Okay. Now to talk more about the book, you also shared the introductory chapter upon your blog post. It's linked in the description of the podcast for those who want to check it out.
Let's read it and subscribe to get update on the book when it comes out.
Please put it out as soon as possible. We all are really looking forward to it. But you mentioned that the book will be structured into three sections. Could you tell us a bit more about them and what led you to decide the structure?
So the first part is a overview part. It's about the pipeline. What different machine learning roles mean, because a lot of people ask me, what is it as a research engineer? What is a machine learning engineer? Expectation for startups and big companies, because startups and big companies hire very differently.
That's very
So
true.
yeah, like large companies can afford to hire specialists and people who are good at very small niche things. But startups, they want people who can do a lot of things at the same time.
Mhm.
Also for big companies, people like you have routine task, and companies might know exactly what they want you for. But for startups, things change really fast. So maybe
Yeah.
yes, so one thing like large companies can afford to hire specialists, and smaller companies usually want to go for generalist.
Mhm.
Um, well, it's different for junior and senior roles. So for senior roles, people hire for skills more, but for
Yeah.
junior roles, people hire for attitude.
Mhm.
So it's of course it's different from company to company, from team to team, from role to role. I'm just saying like it's a general vibe.
There's
Or
also
so
a
so,
lot
so
of intersection, I would assume, so between all of these factors. So even between the startups and the big companies and both the junior and senior positions, so people always find a mix up. For example, I yesterday saw a posting for a junior position requiring 5 or 6 years of experience for a ML role.
it doesn't matter. Like I don't think it's like years of experience. I was talking about the concept years of experience is extremely outdated. Like, it's so easy to spend like years on the job and learn absolutely
Yeah.
nothing. So I think like years of experience is another one of those weak signals people look for, with the assumption that like the level of competence is proportional to the time you spend on the job, which we all know is not true. Um, so yeah, no, like I think like I'm fresh out of school and I'm working as a senior engineer, so I don't think it has anything to do with years of experience.
Mhm. Could you tell
So
us
anyway,
more?
so yeah, so the book has a lot of the third parties overview, like different roles, different hiring pipeline, different kind of interviews you might face, because different companies are still trying to experiment with different interview formats. Um, Also about how to recognize bad interview questions or good interview questions,
Mhm.
how to prepare in general. So yes, so first part is an overview of the entire hiring pipeline. So the second part, what I call is knowledge questions. So it's the questions that have a deterministic answer. Um, so for example, like given the data set, how good k-means clustering work on it.
Okay.
So I focus more on like how and why questions instead of just like explanation questions, like what question, because concepts you can easily look online. But
Are
for
you
like how,
focusing on the on-site interviews or also the take-home assignments that many companies follow?
so I think we talk about wait, listen. I'm gonna go over it.
Sorry.
Uh, so so there's a four questions. So I talk to people and I have this really nice philosophy is that if a piece of knowledge it's easy acquired, it can be easily acquired, it's not worth that testing for. So
Mhm.
we test. So I focus on question and test understanding. Um, so the third part is open-ended questions. So that consists of like machine learning system design, which is a very popular interview questions. I feel like every company asks at least one of those machine learning design questions for some, such as like how to build recommendation system for Amazon, things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have one correct answer. So usually, but there's like a general framework to approach the question. And also like another important question is like debugging.
Mhm.
So you have a models and it doesn't work, then how do you debug the model?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So that's it. So that's the three part. So yeah. So I will touch on take home take home project. So a lot
Mhm.
of companies experimenting with take home project. So we also talk briefly on it.
Okay. And could you also talk about what research is going on behind this? Because I don't think there are any other resources on the questions or the hiring pipeline. So are you talking to a lot of people, or what efforts are
God,
going into
I can't imagine how many people we talking to. So many,
it?
which
Okay.
is good though. I like talking to people. Yeah, and
Did you?
one thing great about social media is that like when after everyone knows I'm working on the book, they send me a lot of emails and messages and just sharing with me the experience, which is absolutely amazing. I'm so grateful.
So in case you're on the hiring scene, please again reach out to Chip to make her book even better for us. We all will be thankful to you.
Yes, you are
Uh,
really nice, amazing. People are super nice.
uh, did you start to see a common pattern, maybe a positive or negative so far in all of the conversations, or is there still a lot of variance in the hiring pipeline?
Yeah, there are a lot of variants. There are like some general skeleton.
Hmm.
So there's some things that can be annoying for candidates is, for example, like when interviewers ask an open-ended questions and
Yeah.
then expect one right answer. So like especially the interviewers who don't have a lot of experience, or interviewers know only one way of doing things. So when they ask open questions and they just like force candidates to go for exact answers they have in mind, which is hard. So like to be able to ask open-ended questions, you have to go to expect open-ended answers. Um, yeah, so a lot of interviewers also. So you know this sayings, it's like you can only measure something as well as the measure stick goes.
True.
So if you don't have, the interviewer doesn't know the subject very well, the interviewer will not be able to adequately probe deep into that field, like that aspect for candidates. Mm, Also, like interviewers, sometimes they have questions that they confuse between just knowledge understanding.
Mhm.
For example, like if candidate might not be familiar with a term
Yeah.
and trip the candidates because they have no idea what it is about. But as soon as they understand it, they might know the answers. So, but sometimes interviewers just don't explain. It's just like, oh, this person doesn't know that, and they just like dismiss the candidate.
Mhm.
Or like some questions that rely on some specific um, um, insight, like trick questions. Like if you realize that you can solve it very quickly, but if you don't, you can't.
Yeah.
And that might work for candidates who have seen the question before, so they might be able to answer that. And it really doesn't say anything about the candidate ability. The candidate can just get lucky.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of things like that. Yeah.
What best advice do you have before we wait until the book comes out? What best advice would you have for both sides of the table? So people who are working on the hiring scene and people who are applying for jobs?
So for people who apply for a job, um, I would say preparing for interview is not a short-term project. It's not something you can do in like, oh, okay, I have an interview next week. How do I'm really bad engineer right now, but how do I become a kick-ass engineer in a week? You can't. So it's a lifelong process. So it's
Mhm.
starting from building a portfolio, building a network, understand the market. Yeah, there's a lot. Um, so always be in preparation. And it's really funny. Like the best time to interview is when you don't need a job. So no, for real. So like if you
Uh,
even if you're in a job for like a long time, maybe like once a year you can just like interview another company to first of all just to know what is out there. Um,
Honestly, I hope no one is listening to this, but I always keep applying on and off to any interesting posting just to have an idea of what's the hiring pipeline like, or what do they expect out of candidates, even though I'm not applying really for the
yeah,
job.
yeah, that might be a good thing. I asked my friends to give me interviews. I'm just like I'm not really looking for a job, but like what do you ask the candidates? Can you give me like the test or best interview? Sometimes they comply and have to buy them food in exchange for that. So yeah, and for recruiters, for interviewers, so it's really funny how quickly interviewers forget that they were in interviewers interviewers' shoes just like a few months earlier. You know
Mhm.
how a lot of companies, you get into the company, you start a full-time job, you shadow a few interviews, and they have to interview people yourself. So you're not much different from candidates. So I really hope that interviewers can put themselves in the shoes of candidates and sympathize with them.
This is one thing that I really respected when I interviewed for Google. So I did get to the on-site stage. Is that it was really like a conversation with more of a peer or a colleague, for example, compared to other postings that I applied to, which were like pretty serious or literally like me talking to someone who's in a way senior position.
Mm. Yeah, I think some companies have really great hiring pipeline. I think that's like also like for me, as this interview process has the one-way feedback. It's like candidates sometimes ask interviewers to give feedback whether like on the interview, and candidates get feedback whether they get the job or not, right? But interviewers don't get feedback on how well they did, how well they conduct interview. So I
Yeah.
hope that interviewers will be more active in soliciting feedback. Maybe you can just ask a candidate like, what do you think of the interviews? Like, what were like? I hope that maybe it can be after the decisions, because if it's after in the sport and candidates want to be nice, you say like, oh, the interview was great, you're amazing, so get on the good side. But I really hope that they have more feedback for interviewers so that they can
Mhm.
improve.
That's a great suggestion. For again, for many job postings, they require someone to have a PhD or a master's to
Mm.
to be even apply to the posting. Do you think that still holds, or what would be a good substitute there? And you
I
also
think there's
create. Sorry, go ahead.
I think there's certain companies definitely require PhD in DeepMind, so they hire exclusively for not exclusively. I think there's job for the engineering role in the PhD, but for researcher role in the PhD. Um, yeah, so that's true. There's certain companies, but those companies are very, very in the minority.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also shared a amazing thread on courses or open free courses that one can follow. Could
Mm-hmm.
you share more about that, and how did you pick those few courses? Because even if you search for a single course on probability, I'm sure you can find hundred, if not thousands, of courses for every topic that one could think of.
So I have to admit that I didn't do an exclusive search. I didn't test out like every course out there and like pick
Okay,
the best.
that's not possible, honestly.
So it's mostly how I came as a curriculum is based on what I think is important for machine learning,
Mhm.
and then I ask my friends for like what do you think is the best course on this topic and that topic, and also it's based on my own experience. I also like test out those courses to see if I think they are good. So word of mouth, a lot of word of mouth.
Okay. If you want to find a free curriculum, do check out the resources link. We'll have your Twitter thread linked.
Yeah, so it's like 10 courses from math to machine learning theory to hands-on deep learning course to yeah.
One of the interesting things that I'd really like to read more, there are a few blog posts maybe around this, is but how can you better manage yourself when you're following a self-taught course or just an online course? Because I've written about this. I've actually, one of my most famous blog posts is how not to do an online course, because I always go on in tangential directions. So that's again an open question.
Yeah, I agree with you. I myself try to take online courses and my success rate is pretty low.
What
But
happens
I said
usually? Sorry,
so
go
the
ahead.
nice thing about courses, I don't like sometimes like for me like unless for a few courses that I feel like if once I want to do the entire thing.
Hmm.
But sometimes I want to learn the concept and I focus on that part of the concept only. And also depends on different style of learning. For me, like I learned the best by doing. So I think I have a horrible thing because I like just try to do things first, and when it doesn't work, I say, "Oh shoot, how should I make it work?" And then I go back and read the instruction. So for a lot of courses, sometimes I try to do the exercise first
Okay,
before I do
watching the
the
lectures.
lecture. Yeah.
Okay, that's
Mm.
so. That's where I usually mess up. For example, I'm a huge fan of fast A, and when I was trying, I wanted to complete the course from end to end, but when you start looking up for a concept, you go down the rabbit hole from one Twitter thread to another course to another Wikipedia page, and then you're off to another complete project. So that's a challenge in itself with all of these online courses, I think.
Yeah, I think you need to like decide that you're gonna finish this course no matter what, and yeah, you just have to do it. I think it
For sure.
requires a lot of discipline. Yeah, but that's sometimes a good idea, like when to stop doing it, because if you really don't think that this part is not gonna bring value to you, then you shouldn't force yourself to waste time on it.
It's also a challenge when I know many people who have a full-time job and are following a course, or when you sign up for a Kaggle competition, which is a full-time job sometimes,
Yeah,
and then you want to follow a course along with that.
I think it's really good to learn online is when you have a group of friends to do it with you, or like to join a group of people, and this is like motivation and keep you accountable. Because when I do it by yourself, it's very easy to just like stop and nobody's asking. So for me, like when I do something that I know that I have such a high chance of quitting, I tell a lot of people about it.
Hmm.
So that like when I tell a lot of people about it, it's kind of like make me feel okay. If I don't keep my words, people will not judge me. Or my friends occasionally like, oh, how's that thing going? And I was like, oh, I haven't done it for like 2 weeks. And they're like, why are you not? And I'm like, oh, yes, I'm gonna go home and do it now. Yeah.
uh, so we another that's another plug from my end is that we had the CEO of Sharpest Minds on a show, and he shared the exact same advice. So they're working on again helping people get jobs in the data science scene. So do
Yeah.
check that episode out as well in case you want to know more about that. And I'm also an active contributor to an online community called Data Science Network. So please go to dsnet.org in case you want to join a bunch of online study groups.
Okay.
So coming to your open source and non-profit efforts, could you tell us more about them? And I think you recently tweeted out about V8 AI, where you're
Yeah.
also an advisor. So could you tell us more
Yes.
about that?
So some non-profit organizations that aims to teach. So we have courses on machine learning, on AI for people in Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's small right now, but we are growing slowly growing. Um, and a lot of students of previous courses are also now TAs for the future courses,
Mhm.
and they have been doing really cool project. They've been winning competitions in Vietnam. They also publishing open source project. You should definitely check it out. It's vietAI.org. They also have summit when they organize. So they organize the first AI summit in Vietnam. Just to provide a place for people interested in AI to like come and talk and meet each other.
Okay.
So I'm advisors, which means that I don't do a lot for the organization. I
Okay.
try. So it's one of those things like I really like the organization. I wish I could spend more time to be worth why of the title advisor.
Mhm. How can we better help such open communities or even Viet AI for that matter? So I'm not from Vietnam. I am from India, but if I'd like to support the project or support the motivation behind it.
I think like if you want, you can do something similar for the community.
Mhm.
And we're very happy to share like our curriculum or how to like organize the courses.
Mhm.
So it's just on try and error. So over time we learn certain things and we're going to be very happy if anybody wants to replicate the model anywhere.
Okay. So please do check out the website in case you want to start a community.
Yeah, and
Why
you can
was
join the summit, sorry. We don't know when the next summit AI summit in Vietnam yet, but like when it happens, it'd be really nice for you to join.
okay? Do follow Chip in that case because I'm pretty sure you'll tweet out about that whenever that's ready.
Yeah, I
Um,
will.
why was this aspect important to you? So because you were already involved in a college curriculum, you were also working on the online course, and now you're at NVIDIA at a full-time job while working on the book, also contributing to community. So why is the community aspect also important to you?
Um, I just really like it. I think so for me, I think it's just like I think I have been very fortunate. I got a lot of help during my career, and I think for me, I really want to help people who used to be in my shoes, like for just starting out. I just hope that I can help them in some way, help people in any way. So yeah, I think for me this is really important. So for even for the book, my friend was like, "How are you thinking it? Like, are you gonna get a publisher?" And I'm just like, "If you get a publisher, they will surely want to like retain the digital copy. Whereas I really want to have like some kind of free version for students
Hmm.
because I know like students in Vietnam or India might not be able to afford buying an expensive book.
Yeah.
So yeah. So for me, that's really important. I think it's important to provide people with equal opportunity.
That's very kind of you. Now shifting the case a bit to talk about cutting edge research, there's this huge outflow of information. What advice or what best tips do you have to follow the cutting edge developments in machine learning?
Um, so for me, I would like to think of myself as somebody who go on archive and like check, but I don't go on like I don't read. I go on archive maybe like once a month, as in like screening the thing. So I
Do
get
you
most
sort
of
out?
my huh?
Do you use SOTA? So SOTA is a project by Chip to query the SOTA papers.
No, I use Twitter a lot. I use sort of
Okay.
what is more like when I want to quick query like for state of the art. But like for getting news, I use Twitter a lot.
Okay.
I also subscribe to a couple of newsletters that I think have an incredible amount of information.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, mostly Twitter and by talking to people, gossiping. Yeah.
Got it. So that's what the water cooler conversations are like at NVIDIA.
Huh?
That's what the water cooler conversations are like at NVIDIA, I would imagine. So just
Yeah.
talking about paper.
Yeah. So I subscribe to some channel, the Slack channel on AI papers, and people share papers, which is quite cool. My coworkers also share papers. I think that's very important to work with people who share the same interest as you. So you get like if some people interest them, they will interest you as well. So it's just a network of people sharing papers. I go try to go to conferences. I don't go to a lot of conferences, but I try to go to a couple a year.
Mhm.
So if I was very niche on like NLP, so I go to like NLP conference, and also I clear on NeurIPS, the great conference.
Okay. Now, my final question before we end the call would be: what best advice do you have for beginners who are definitely interested in deep learning, have maybe tried it, but then start to feel intimidated because it's math heavy or it feels advanced?
I would say that intimidation is never gonna go away. I still feel intimidated.
Still?
Yeah, still. So don't let it stop you because people feel the same way. It's not about comparing yourself to other people. It's more about comparing yourself today, to yourself yesterday, even making progress. So as long as you're making progress, you are getting somewhere.
Okay. That's great advice. Also, want to ask you, so you've written, I think, 3 best-selling books on your travel. So, can we experience an English version of, expect an English version of that, or any upcoming release on that?
I'm too lazy to translate them into English. I would rather write new books in English.
Okay. Okay. Um, Thank you so much, Chip, for doing this interview, and thank you so much for all of your efforts in the community and for the book and everything in the open source world.
Yeah. I'm so glad. I feel like it's really good for me to hear just like when I try to do something and somebody finds it useful. Just like it makes me really happy.
I'm definitely a huge fan.
Okay, thanks. Really nice seeing you.
Likewise. Thanks so much for joining.
Okay, have a good day. Bye bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please be sure to give it a review or feel free to shoot me a message. You can find all of the social media links in the description. If you like the show, please subscribe and tune in each week to Chai Time Data Science.